Hello everybody, this is Astocky here and I am playing Kerbal Space Program 0.19. Now the reason I'm doing that is because not all of the mods have updated at this stage to 0.20. So what I thought I would do is, while we're waiting for that to happen, I thought I would demonstrate one of the things that I don't really like about the Deadly Reentry mod. And while I'm doing that, I thought I would demonstrate I guess what would make a really good re-entry and show you why it doesn't work with this mod, and then from that point I would move on to where we currently are with my 0.20 pack, or at least that's what I'm calling it, and show you why it is in fact substantially better. Now I also want to play around with some things as well, because I can. So we're going to take those retro thrusters and separate them out. These are going to be crazy little burning retro thrusters. Always wanted to have crazy little burning retro thrusters. So now we're going to need power. So utility, I believe, is where we get our power from. We're going to want just these little panels. Going to go for 4 of them. Hopefully that'll work alright, because if I run out of power everything goes horrible. Really simple rocket design here. I'm not aiming to break any records. I'm not even really aiming to do anything fancy. Oops. All I want to demonstrate is that Deadly Reentry is not working the way that it should, and the best way to fix Deadly Reentry from not working the way that it should is to replace it with a mod that works better. In this case it's going to be Deadly Reentry 2, but again I'm going to just show you some things. I'm going to show you how it works and do a bit of a demo, and it's going to involve some quick saving because I'm going to show you what should happen, and then I'm going to show you what does happen. Well, actually it's going to be a bit of a combination of, initially I'm going to try and show you how to do a good re-entry, and it's going to end up with me exploding. And then I'm going to explain why, and then show you the kind of re-entry that you have to do, and then I'm going to explain why that wouldn't work, and then I'm going to switch over to 0.20. Now it's only I guess it's a release candidate mod at the moment, so it's not 100% ready for prime time yet, but already it's showing a lot of promise. Now you can see me throttling back quite substantially here, and that's because you need to try and maintain, until you get to the point where the atmosphere is a bit thinner, you need to try and maintain as close to the speed of sound as you can. You don't want to go really too fast, because if you go too fast you kind of lose all ability to control your rocket, because the FAR mod fairly accurately models aerodynamics, and you lose a lot of your ability to control when you're in the transonic regime until you hit about 1.5. So you want to make sure you're at a nice high altitude when you do that, so that you can just throttle right up and just kind of muscle yourself through it. So there we go, I've kind of muscled myself through it there. Going quite quickly now, but quite quickly at a good high altitude where it's fairly safe. Wishing I had a little tad more control over this thing. Yeah, the SAS is really all over the place, because I haven't got an SAS module fitted, so it is kind of very much a manual flight. And I didn't install Mech Jeb or any other kind of mod like that, so I have no idea really exactly how this is going to work. How are we doing? About 40, that's not quite high enough. Yeah, because I'm pitching quite a way away from my prograde vector, it's constantly wanting to pull itself back down at the moment where the atmosphere is thin. But once I get myself up to a better altitude, you can see that I start to get a little bit more control over things, and pretty soon even my minuscule little bit of SAS will be able to hold it in spot. It's getting very close now. Pushing this up. I'm going to try and aim for around about 150 kilometer circular orbit. As to whether that'll work or not, who knows. Oh, yep, there we go. Now we just want to push sideways. We're really in the thinnest part of the atmosphere now. Just going to keep pushing sideways, like I said. 150 kilometers is the mark I'm aiming for. We should have plenty of fuel to get me into a nice stable orbit at that altitude. Oh, I was not paying attention the way I should have, and I ended up getting a bit too high, so we're now going to warp ourselves up. That's got to be pretty close. Rapidly coming up on orbital velocity now, which I think is about 2200 or 2300. There you go, coming up quickly. We're up to there, 148. Okay, that's pretty close to my 150 I was aiming for. So what I'm going to do now is come around to pretty much my periapsis and then burn retro to bring this thing back down. So we'll zip ourselves around. Okay, so now quick save. Now I'm going to show you what a realistic re-entry profile would look like. So I'm going to start by ditching off the part of my rocket that I no longer need. Now I'm going to point my capsule prograde because I have retro thrusters. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire those retro thrusters. So firing retro thrusters. Why did they not do anything? Okay, they didn't do anything. This is why we quick save. Quick save is important. This was not meant to be part of the demo, but I now know that those retro thrusters don't work, so that's important. Or maybe they need fuel. Maybe they're not solid rocket retro thrusters as much as I thought they were, and maybe they are liquid fuel retro thrusters. Either way, we're going to burn retrograde, and we're going to burn ourselves back into an orbit that we're happy with. So burning our periapsis down. Now, a realistic re-entry from this altitude would have me coming down. Now this is going to look like it's pretty steep. Oh, gotta go to staging. Now, like I said, this is going to look like a very, very steep re-entry compared to what people are used to, because I'm coming in. I'm basically going to put my periapsis right above Curb Africa. How's that for a word? So I'm going to zip myself around till we hit the atmosphere. There we go, we've hit the atmosphere now. So now I'm going to turn myself retrograde. So you can see we're coming in at about... why are you not working? Whoa. Should have installed Mech Jeb so that I could have just used the Smart Assist Autopilot. Try and hold that, please. So I'm going to turn on the heat shield, just toggle it on so we can see what the temperature is. Now watch the G meter. Now the way real re-entry works is you need to get through the atmosphere and shed your speed as quickly as you can. So that means you need to decelerate quite quickly because it takes time for the atmospheric heat to transfer to your ship. You might say, well, what does that mean? Well, it means you need to try and get the G meter to read as high as you can that your structure can take without your ship falling apart, because if you go too flat, and that's the kind of re-entry that this Deadly Reentry plugin at the moment asks for, if your re-entry is too flat, basically what happens is you have a lot longer to soak all that heat up and do damage to your spacecraft. So the re-entry I'm doing at the moment is quite a normal profile, and I think it should peak somewhere around about 3 or 4 Gs, which is perfectly acceptable for a real re-entry. The problem is, well, actually, one of the issues is the fact that I have some solar panels that are sticking out, which means they're just going to explode off. But the other issue is the fact that if you watch the temperature here, it is just going to skyrocket. Now, real physics, there's a shockwave boundary layer that appears in between the heat shield and the air, and so the air gets really hot, but the heat shield doesn't. Unfortunately, this one only seems to model the heat temperature of the air and applies damage to the ship directly, so that's why it doesn't really work. And you'll watch pretty quickly now, this temperature is just going to skyrocket. It's going to really quickly hit 10,000 and it's just going to explode. And that's a bad thing. So you can see now we've only just started to decelerate. So now we should be shedding our speed, and about 32 we'll hit the point where the re-entry effects really kick in, and at that point, there we go, temperature skyrockets. Getting some re-entry effects now, temperature's really going up. Now the space shuttle heat tiles are rated to 1600 degrees Celsius, so you can see we've already exceeded that and we've shed less than 10% of our actual velocity, which is it's just a ridiculous notion. You can see everything here just exploding and overheating, heat shields exploding, ships exploding, and what did we shed? A fraction of our actual orbital velocity. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to the last quick save and show you how you would survive that, because you can see there the G meter got up to 1, 2, 3.5 Gs, which, like I said, is what you would expect. That's a very reasonable re-entry. In fact, that's why they've got this red bar here, because you know that that's not reasonable. Now, something I want to see if I can do is you don't seem to have like an activation option. But anyhow, let's go to our orbital map. Let's begin firing. At this altitude, we want to try and bring this down to kind of just inside the thicker part of the atmosphere. And this will give me a re-entry profile that, while working with this version of Deadly Reentry, is actually very, very, very dangerous in real life. There we go. So we brought our periapsis down to 41 kilometers, and now we're going to do the same thing, and we're just going to rip through it. And once again, we'll position ourselves in much the same way. Struggling to work out what a good angle is. Oh, that'll do. So now we'll just accelerate time up until I get to a bit lower out of an altitude. So you can see here everything is pretty much the same. No major difference. Still nice and cold. I'm accelerating this time, but it will make no difference to the final outcome. You can see that at this point already my vertical speed should start to be coming up. Yeah, you can see it's starting to slowly kind of nudge itself up. Now, you can see we have our apoapsis rapidly coming down. Our periapsis is slowly dropping as we're bleeding speed off. again, we're kind of shooting in. This time we're doing an almost flat re-entry. And unfortunately, what an almost flat re-entry means is that right now you can see I'm building up heat. And that's true of the real space shuttles and all the other entry vehicles as well. They build up heat, and they're building up heat and building up heat, and well, they just keep building it up. It's a slow process because they're not heating up the air isn't heating up as quickly. But the problem with that slow process is it just keeps happening and keeps happening and keeps happening, and it's like having a really slow fire on a pot of water for a long time. It gets very hot. You know, you can make it really hot very quickly. Jebediah thinks this is just the best thing ever. So you can see that the temperature is not really going up, and I'm shedding quite a lot of speed. Now, in fact, I think if I look, there you go. So my periapsis is now dropping, my apoapsis, basically that means I'm not going back up out of the atmosphere. I have hit low enough that I'm going to re-enter. So now we just have to watch the temperature and see how we go. You can see the temperature's not going up, it's basically staying the same while we're still bleeding off speed. And that's pretty much what you want to do. Remember, it's once we start to get to this darker blue, this mid-color blue here, when we really start heating up. So right now, we're slowing down, but we're not actually heating up because of the way it models re-entry, which is quite frankly wrong. So now my temperature is actually dropping, even though I'm really braking hard and getting into the thicker atmosphere, which is again just completely nonsensical. There we go, we're now actually hitting the point where the re-entry shield is having to do something, and I might have actually pitched myself in slightly too steeply for this deadly re-entry. But again, you look at the G, very, very few Gs at the moment, and this is definitely in that area of not very safe. So at the moment, I'm not even overheating my little thruster things. Maybe I am. Okay, that's not cool. Yep, heating up, heating up, heating up, heating up, heating up. Okay, clearly not the world's best demonstration, but you get the idea. Going for a really shallow angle means I actually bled, an extra 300 meters per second off my re-entry, which again is just not the way it should work. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to close this down, and I'm going to open back up 0.20, and I'm going to do a demonstration with the new Deadly Reentry, Deadly Reentry 2, and I'm going to show you just a little bit about how much better it is. So back in a moment. Okay guys, I'm back. I've only got 2 mods installed this time, which is Deadly Reentry and the Ferram's Aerospace Research. So I've got an SAS unit installed this time though, so hopefully what that will do is that will allow me to with a much greater deal of accuracy kind of hold my ascent profile. But I'm a little bit heavier, but yeah, I've only got 2 mods installed this time, so no Ioncross that I have to worry too much about, life support and no other stuff. But you will notice here I have an ablative shield on my command pod. Now that is the indication of the integrity of your heat shield and how long it's going to last for. That's a really important feature, which is a fantastic feature that they added in the new version that wasn't in the previous version, which is just cool. And you can customize your own components, create your own heat shields. You don't actually need to add a heat shield part because all of the command pods and things that look like they have a heat shield kind of texture on them, it has automatically added a heat shield too, which I think is just awesome. So we want to pitch over a bit more firmly now. Hold it. Much better. So yeah, it's automatically added that, which is just brilliant and makes for, I think, a much more realistic kind of thing, because your space planes that have that blackish texture on the bottom of them will actually count like having an ablative heat shield now, which I think is just brilliant. It also has its own kind of CFG that allows you to customize parts to have them set up just the way that you want them to be set up. Like I said, overall I think this thing is just brilliant. It really changes the way re-entry works too. So I'll show you, I guess, Oh, this is so cool. I love .20. Look at that. Oh, he's only medium courage and medium stupidity. Jebediah, I thought you were way better than that. Look at his face though. He is just like, yeah, look at me, this is the best thing ever. Man, I just can't get enough of Jeb. Wonder what he sees inside. Nothing. Okay, well that works. You know, he can't see a thing and he is still the happiest Kerbal alive. How we doing? Nearly 70 kilometers. Let's just make sure we push this thing out of the atmosphere. Because I'm going to aim for the same 150, approximately 150 by 150 orbit. And then I will go for the same kind of re-entry as well. But you'll see it will work totally differently, or at least it should work totally differently if what I've been led to believe is correct. Really getting up fast now. I'm actually getting up really close to orbital velocity, and I still haven't quite left the atmosphere, which is cool. So this is, I might even get this up and get this periapsis up above 0 before I even hit 150, maybe not. Never mind. That was pretty close. That'll be perfect. That's exactly what I want to do. That has got to be close enough for government work. So speed up time a little. There we go. And burn. One beautifully, incredibly, mostly circular orbit. So now we want to come to about... So we want to set our periapsis out here over the water, which means I think about... Need to move it around a bit. Yeah, that's looking good. And now we want to burn ourselves down. That's because I'm going to go for the fairly steep re-entry. There we go. I'm basically going to just graze the surface of the planet, because I believe that is a perfectly feasible re-entry now that I have this mod installed. Whoops. Oh no, I nearly staged. If I staged, I'd be stuck here forever. Okay, so now, oh, SAS off, still the SAS. I'm putting a lot of faith in the fact that this mod works the way that it's supposed to. From reading the forums, it looks like it should. But I guess we will know for sure really soon. Now I've stopped just a fraction early there, because when I go chink and disconnect, so there is my ablative shield, and you'll notice it looks perfectly normal. That's because there's no extra part added. It's just now built in. And now by right clicking on it, you can see you have a temperature setting, which is cool, and the ablative shield setting and a bunch of other really cool stuff. But the important thing is, oops, let's delete that node, otherwise it'll get in the way. You can see we're going to hit the atmosphere pretty hard. In fact, we have hit the atmosphere fairly hard. So now let's point ourselves in the correct retrograde direction. Nope, nope, come on. Ah, that would be my issue. I ejected my SAS to save weight. Yeah, so that would be my issue. But we're pretty much holding it now. So we'll accelerate things up a little bit. And once the temperature starts to rise, you can see we're coming in around about that kind of 10-ish degree mark that I said is what we would want to aim for. And you'll watch the G meter come up and it'll give you a good amount of Gs, but fingers crossed everything should work really well. Now I believe the heat shield is set to a much lower temperature than before, because it should be correctly calculating the temperature this time of the heat shield, not the temperature of the air. Hopefully, fingers crossed. So we haven't started to ablate any of the heat shield yet. I'm sure very soon we will. Temperature's rising. Okay, there we go. So temperature's coming up. The heat shield is ablating away. We're picking up some re-entry effects. We're starting to decelerate. I may have made this too steep, I don't know. You can see the temperature is not really going up very high because the actual ablative heat shield is absorbing all the energy that would otherwise be causing the temperature to go up really fast. So we're kind of holding. Now hopefully there'll still be some ablative material left in the heat shield when it's finished. My aim was to try, and you can see here we got 1, 2, that's a good solid 3 Gs. Okay, so now we've run out of ablative material and the temperature's rising quite fast. And now we've hit the point where the temperature is starting to drop back down again. Down to Mach 3. Temperature's dropping back off to normal. So yeah, no ablative material left on our heat shield. Going to turn the little SAS off. Slow down to Mach 1.5. The aerodynamics now are starting to not be very friendly to this shaped capsule. About 10k mark, I'm going to pop the re-entry chute. Got to make sure I'm down below the speed of sound though before I do that. There we go, below the speed of sound. Pop the chute. I didn't lose those solar panels. I probably should have. I'm not sure whether that's a new thing. Yeah, I think I probably should have lost them, but what it could be is it could be that enough of the energy was actually being absorbed and deflected around this that it wasn't heating it up. I'm not sure whether that's meant to be modeled or not though. But the important thing is that is a pretty much a picture perfect re-entry. You know, somewhere up around the 3G mark in terms of deceleration. Really exactly what you would expect. Jebediah is just grinning his ass off at the moment. I mean, this is a re-entry mod the way a re-entry mod should be. Now the next thing that I'm going to do for those times when potentially you might want to have something is I'm going to add back in the heat shields from the previous Deadly Reentry mod, and I'm going to tweak the configuration settings for them to work with this new one. So I'm going to basically give you the option that if you, for whatever reason, say you're coming back from the moon and you want to go really fast and you want to hit the atmosphere and you want to make things go bang, you can add some extra layers of ablative heat shield to the front of that to really help kind of slow yourself down. Haven't done that yet. Like I said, there's still a bit of tweaking left before I'm ready for my Let's Play to move on to 0.20, but certainly for right now, I mean, this is looking brilliant. That is re-entry the way it should be modeled. It's fantastic. So I hope you guys have enjoyed watching this. I'm not suggesting you should learn anything, but definitely know that the game is getting better. The mods are getting better. The performance, from what I understand from talking to people, is substantially better. Certainly for me, it seems a lot less laggy when you're like switching between ships and kind of loading things. I've heard there's some texture glitches, but realistically, to get the kind of performance increases they have and way less memory usage and stuff, I think it's definitely worth it. So thanks very much for watching. Stay tuned for maybe later this week, if we get lucky, when the rest of the mods are updated and we can get back to the Let's Play. Until then, Astocky out.